Alright boys, we have some really interesting Pokemon Unite news that is going down tonight because Sylveon is getting a Nerf hotfix. And I find it insane. Like, I thought we were going to have to wait an entire week until the next balance patch for something to be done about Sylveon, but everyone knew it was way too strong, except for some of the idiots that were also the same idiots that were like, nah man, Gengar doesn't need a nerf, just outplay it, bro. Same people are also just like, nah man, Sylveon, just dive it, bro. The damage was so high on Sylveon, you just couldn't dive it. Also, Calm Mind gives you a speed boost, and at level 12, which is pretty early on compared to the other Pokemon upgrades, you get to eat a hit, get a shield, and then run away. So even if a Pokemon dives onto you, you Calm Mind, you run away, hey, now they're in the Hyper Voice sweet spot getting one shot or something. So yeah, Sylveon was just doing too much damage, and what I find interesting is that both abilities were outperforming. We've been seeing this weird balance philosophy with Pokemon Unite that, you know, some Pokemon are just getting buffed when they shouldn't. Like Zeraora has been getting constant wild charge buffs because they think discharge is okay, and they just want wild charge to get some relevance. That's insane to me. And I think that's a big reason why Talonflame is overperforming right now, because they just kept on buffing Fly. This goes back to one of the earlier patches where it's like, oh, giving Talonflame that ratio and that base increase, and then going and giving it just flat attack in the most recent patch, and also the cooldown reduction, and also the increased movement speed while flying. Turns out, now Talonflame's a menace. So yeah, there's been like some weird things where it's like, why don't they just nerf discharge? Just bring that in line with some of the other things. Lucario still untouched, but Cramorant was too problematic, and Cramorant has received 2 nerfs, Whirlpool for the early game, and then Surf and Unite move for the rest of it. I don't get it. And then they launch Sylveon as is. At least they acknowledge that Sylveon wasn't fine when everyone else was talking about it not being fine. So after seeing how the balance has been going, I'm kind of surprised that both are equally problematic and it's not just one moveset making the game toxic. I was hoping that with like all the popularity of Mystical Fire, maybe Mystical Fire gets nerfed and then Hyper Voice is untouched and is still the best one. Kind of like how Extreme Speed has always been the best on Lucario even before the Power Up Punch nerfs, and then they just kind of like keep that as the fun little thing for people to have. Or maybe they like touch the special attack scaling on Calm Mind, because like that's another weird approach at balance, that by hitting the base special attack, you're effectively doing the same thing. Or hitting the scaling on Calm Mind, you're kind of doing the same thing, and then like now you're getting the nerf. So it's really going to come down to how much these are nerfed, and if they're nerfed fairly equally. And honestly, I think we were a few days away from people realizing that Mystical Fire's damage is ridiculously front-loaded. So, like, what happens is people get scared by that first hit of Mystical Fire doing so much damage, and then they start running away from Sylveon, and then Sylveon gets off all the other Mystical Fires, gets the cooldown reset, and then jumps at them again, and then bursts them down. Now, technically, you can't, like that's still the thing about Sylveon, because it's not as easy as just dive it, bro. Because even if you're trying to dive the Mystical Fire set, like, you're just setting off all the Mystical Fires, and it's going to jump away from you, get that first one, and then still do crazy amounts of damage. It is single target though, but the game is weird and breaks down in all kinds of ways. So yeah, like both movesets are toxic and ridiculous, and we're going to see how much they get nerfed. We've seen both kinds of nerfs in the past. We've seen complete gutting removal of a Pokemon. We've also seen, that's not enough, but at least it's not a problem anymore. So I'm hoping that maybe most of the outrage is centered on Mystical Fire, and then they keep Hyper Voice still one-shottable. But like, if you're gonna nerf it, then what? Yeah, I don't know. So in a few hours, we're gonna find out what's going on here, and that makes things pretty interesting. And then we're gonna have to like rely on the math cord and Unite DB to update it and see what really happened. But also just like kind of figuring it out and seeing it for yourself. Like, I don't know what they can do, but I hope that's still viable. Like, I'm really liking my Sylveon top, but if that's only viable because Sylveon is aggressively overtuned, I understand it, but I like being the Sylveon top for a bit. Solo top Sylveon was pretty cool. Interesting things going on with this patch. No update on the Pokemon Unite website, except in Japan, because Japan, they made an announcement about it, and then you go to the Japanese Pokemon Unite website, and they actually have October 8th update contents, adjustment of game balance, and that's it. Now, it can be seen as overkill to do an entire website update just for one little balance change. But I do like it for the archival thing, where it's like, yo, this is effectively a hotfix, and Sylveon was a problem, and at least we're making updates to the website. Whereas we haven't seen any game balance for quite some time. So we haven't had any game balance since the game came out for mobile, and now we're gonna be like pushing 3 weeks. And instead of putting out the rest of the balance update with the Sylveon's just like straight hotfixed. And the only time we saw like a quick update was when the Lucario extreme speed bug happened. But since then, we still haven't had game balance. I need my Buddy Bear nerf, man. They're still not doing anything about Zapdos. And then we see things like this, you know, please nerf Zapdos. Like, that shouldn't happen. I feel like at some point, the losing team is responsible for the outcome of the game. Like Baron steals or Elder Dragon steals into a game conversion from time to time. I think that's fine for the game. The problem is like everything revolves around Zapdos so much. So I mean like that's the top reply, and then people talking about Zapdos and whatnot, and like we're still missing game balance. You know, I need my Buddy Bear nerf, man. I want to see what's going on with Focus Band or other item adjustments and stuff like that. Talonflame probably needs to be brought down. It's just unhealthy for the game. I don't like the lack of counterplay where it just flies in, does half of everyone's health, flame charges away, and then just waits for 9 seconds. Nah, man, can't be having that. Or at least a statement responding to all the Zapdos stuff where it's like, yo, this is what we want the game to be about, and while we think maybe Zapdos is a little overtuned, we're going to give it some more time as players learn the game, and then we feel they're going to find out what to do with Zapdos. And then if that fails, we'll consider doing something about Zapdos. Like, I just want some reassurance from my devs, man, because we're not getting much. They have been responsive though. Like they're responding to Sylveon outrage. They're responding to extreme speed outrage. I just don't know what they're doing with the game balance, because I feel like we should have gotten something for the Sylveon patch. However, a weird reason why we didn't get a game update with the Sylveon patch is because Sylveon was already in it. That's how we had like all the ability leaks and all the data instantly and all the data mining and stuff, because Sylveon was already in the game. The game just allowed it in. You know, it was just activated effectively, and that makes sense because when I was logging in to play Sylveon, you know, I didn't log in for the day because I was just waiting for Sylveon to come out, and then I go in, I'm like, oh, did my game update? I don't think my game updated. Did I come in too early? Like, what happened? Nope, Sylveon's playable. Okay. So yeah, they just turned on Sylveon. So there was no patch to be had. And now they're still patching in Sylveon. So that's another weird question. Like, okay, so what about apps? Do they need to like clear the game update through the apps or something? And that's why it might take a little longer for game balance. But then they're hotfixing Sylveon. They're hotfixing the extreme speed bug. And then we're still waiting on like major game balance and stuff like that. And I don't know. It's like they didn't give Sylveon enough time, even though it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, Gengar needed to be fixed. Like there's just some things that have been unacceptable in Pokemon Unite so far. And early on with a game like this, I kind of want to know what the devs are going for, but without the balance patch, it's kind of hard to see what's going on right here. And the funny thing is, I personally think the game is fine. Like, yeah, Talonflame's annoying, but it also can just have games where it completely falls flat and then gets inted or whatnot. But the fly cooldown reduction might have been a little too much, especially stacking into the base attack and other things that Talonflame can do. So, but like that's kind of the only thing that I find annoying. And when I say annoying, it's mostly lack of counterplay. Like if something is super strong but has some counterplay behind it, then that can be fine. But it just feels like the current play pattern for Talonflame is toxic because it doesn't really have much counterplay. However, I just consider the game balanced. But mostly I just want to see everything nerfed that isn't what I play. Cramorant or Sylveon, and Sylveon's getting nerfed, so it's like, but then Cramorant, like, that's what pisses me off the most. They nerf Cramorant, and then they buff everything else, except for Pikachu, and I know there's people out there that just desperately need that Pikachu buff, because Pikachu deserves the buff, man. It's the freaking Pokemon mascot. So it's like, I think some things need to be done about the game, but even right now, I'm just like, the game's pretty balanced. I would just rather see the things that people are complaining about get nerfed because I don't play them. And then even if that, like, ruins a Pokemon that didn't need to be worried, I'm fine with that. So, like, I want to see the devs' direction. I want it to benefit me, especially because now I'm just extra spited because, like, bruh, Cramorant didn't need to get nerfed. Or at least if you're going to nerf Cramorant, nerf Zeraora and Lucario and show us where you want the top end to be. I don't know, like, so yeah, there's just like weird things I don't understand about Pokemon Unite, where some of the balance is going. But at the same time, like, it ends up being a balanced game, except for Buddy Bear. Like, come on. So, Buddy Barrier, Zapdos haven't been addressed. Weird things getting buffed and nerfed that kind of feel awkward about it, like Zeraora just getting a wild charge pumped into it instead of nerfing discharge as some kind of incentive. So we got that going on, but it's gonna be interesting to see. Like, I think if Hyper Voice keeps its special attack, yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers stuff. Like, if it keeps its special attack scaling, I think that's okay, because then that means Sylveon has to take a risk. It has to take off the Focus Band. It has to take off a more tanky item to preserve the damage that it has. Now, if this gets knocked down to, God, if it goes from like 33, 55%, so like this going down to 33, this going to 50, not 55, then that's going to be interesting to see what happens to Sylveon, because I think that would actually be a pretty hard gutting, since that special attack matters and scales with the Calm Mind and stuff. If it's only like, and also the damage stacks, so just like as it ticks up. So whatever you take off the base is actually going to affect the entirety of the ability. But the thing is, they're not hitting the cooldown, which might have been the most problematic thing about Hyper Voice, but it's also the most fun thing about Hyper Voice. You Giga spam it, like it's almost never off cooldown. It's such, like, I would have laughed if they did the Blastoise thing or the Wigglytuff thing where it's like, oh, turns out it was a bug. Hyper Voice is supposed to start cooldown after the ability finishes, even though we released it like this and let it sit around for a couple of days without acknowledging it as a bug. Like, that would have been funny, but I mean, that could have been all that Hyper Voice needed. But instead, like, they're nerfing Mystical Fire, they're nerfing damage on Hyper Voice, but they're keeping the play pattern the same. So I'm really interested in seeing how that plays out. Is it gutted, or is it really just like, still fine? That's gonna be the interesting thing about it, and I'm kind of excited. So yeah, I'm looking at this. I think I've given all my thoughts. It's just mostly I'm pissed off about Cramorant, and I want to see some other game balance, even though I don't think it's necessary outside of item. Like, we just need a big item balance patch. Just kind of, you know, mix everything around a bit and then make it. I think that's a good place to like start with like the game balance right now, since all the other Pokemon feel reasonably decent, and then after that, just addressing Zapdos is all I care about. So we'll see what happens with the Sylveon, and cool things ahead. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you.